have if it's information that can be provided in some form.
Yeah, and I don't need to know who comes from which
Right.
facility or anything. I just kind of would like to know if we're looking at, $18 an hour jobs, and we maybe need more apartments than we need, what we have now for single family lots to build homes on and stuff.
If I could add, Commissioner Davis, and also some idea of the permanency of the individuals in these jobs. Some of these jobs by nature, folks may only keep for 2 or 3 years, so they may be looking for nothing more than an apartment, unless they have enough money to move into a house early and flip it or whatever. So not everyone who moves to town with a decent income is necessarily going to be looking for a house. I think you need to keep an ample supply of apartments, probably overestimated a little bit.
Well, and one of the things that was in here, Mayor or Commissioner Hoppick again, is, it talked about what we've done in the past. Well, that might be okay to look at, but we have to deal with where we're at right now. And what we have now is, for years, we've had everyone saying we need to see more development. We need more jobs in Salina. Well, now we have that opportunity. And we're kind of in a catch-22, because right now we have a significant number of jobs coming, and construction costs, as Ms. Driscoll stated, have gone through the roof. So, we may be looking at having to do some incentives that we've not done in the past. But I think if we don't, and you're looking at your employers and saying, well, we want you here, but we're not going to be able to work with you to get those jobs here and keep them. And again, we're looking for jobs that'll be here 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I think we're going to probably have to think outside the box a little bit.
Outside the box, but within the budget.
I mean, exactly. But those are things we need to discuss, and we need to be willing to analyze that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump on this bandwagon again. I know we talked about it once, but I still think we need to look at what ground the city owns. We have that ground over there by the Centennial Park that I still think is still sitting there vacant. It used to be housing. And if we're looking to try to build workforce housing, we've got ground there that we could do some RFPs on and get some homes built that would help fill some of this need, I believe. So that's something I still think we need to address.
Is that everyone on the commission? I have just if so, I just have a few things that I'd like to bring up, not necessarily for discussion today, but I think when we revisit this was it tentatively scheduled for March 8th? Did I see on the agenda planner? I think it referenced March 1st here, but I think it was actually March 8th in the agenda planner.
Yeah, you're correct. It was.
Okay. We've been fighting for spots, so.
I know. I just wanted to make that clear so that the folks who were here today are thinking March 8th. But something and maybe it needs to be a longer study session time at that time, but just some things that I've been taking notes and made some notes from earlier. I think in task 4, Ms. Driscoll, you talked about reviewing the incentives that we have, not only locally, but state and federal. I've heard of RHIDs, the rural housing districts, the moderate income housing grants. And I think that something that would be helpful for me is to figure out how some of those programs work together with the CHODO that's been established, that work together with the land bank, that work together, with North Central Regional Planning Commission, because I know that this is a regional issue. It's not just Salina here. So I think I would appreciate maybe a better understanding, if the CHODO's role is going to be providing 2 or 3 homes a year that are rehabbed in areas of change, that's good to know. If they've got a bigger vision, that would be helpful to know too. And similarly with the land bank, I know you've had more than enough on your plate in the last couple of years, truly I do, but so like, where do we stand with that? If I were coming from out of town, could I, or in town, could I be like, hey, could you give me a list of properties that are available to build, not necessarily a huge apartment complex, but maybe a triplex or a quadplex or something like that, if it's zoned correctly. So I guess I'm just a little, I'd like to have some more insight as to how the different programs and the different entities can work together. And then I was looking, and it looks like we've had about 128 multifamily units, whether income restricted or not, since 2015. And it looked like, based on the original housing study, that our critical need is really for the housing units that are under 125,000. And if we're talking about like standalone single family, I mean, as long as I've been on the commission, we've had builders saying, look, I can't do something at a price point that, is under 175 or 200,000. And if housing costs are going up, it's like, I guess, are we then talking about, people renting? Are we talking about duplexes? So I guess I would like a little bit more clarity about, what that under $125,000 price point, what some of the options would be for that. Just a couple more things, and then I want to make sure we give everybody a chance to speak. I believe, I don't know which one of you touched on this earlier, but I think there are a lot of things that go into attracting workers and can address this workforce shortage. I mean, you've got the impact of wages, got the impact of housing affordability, childcare availability. I mean, it's a whole lot of things that are working together. And I don't know how to do this, but to me, it needs to be kind of a holistic discussion that occurs between multiple agencies to make sure that we're not putting all of our efforts into, say, housing, while we're ignoring other issues that may be at play here as well. And then finally, we've talked about this in the past, is the role that our local lenders play in terms of their willingness to look at different housing types or to do larger scale projects. And I don't know that we have any, financial folks here joining us that could speak to that. But, do our developers have the same access to financing that they would if they were in, I don't know, McPherson or Wichita or Manhattan? Or, do we have the kinds of relationships that can get that done? So those are just some kind of things that have been going through my head. And with that, I would be more than happy to open up the conversation to anyone who would like to participate. Again, I see that we have quite a range of people. If you would like to ask questions, offer comments to the commission, please raise your virtual hand. And if you don't know how to do that, I'm sure one of our staff can walk us through it really quickly, or you can, if you've got your camera on, you can wave your hand and we can unmute you, and you can speak your piece. I see Ms. Salem has her hand raised. Could we unmute her?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're
Right. Great. Thank you, commissioners, for taking the time to hear us. This is an important study, and I'm very glad that you're focusing on it. And Commissioner Hodges, you're right, it is a holistic approach. There's many things that have to happen for this community to be ready for this many people to move here and to raise and thrive here. To me, it's a little bit I guess I had a mentor once who always talked about a lobster in a pot, and the water gets a little bit hotter all the time and you kind of don't notice till it's a crisis and you're boiling over. You know, the city's had some opportunities in the past to have some good sized apartment complexes and hasn't taken advantage of that. And that's, I don't know that most of you were even on the city commission when all of those was happening, but I think we're obviously at that point now. We're having trouble as we recruit people and they start to look for housing. You know, where am I going to live? I like to come to work there, but I need a decent place to live. We have, and that's rental or buying. I mean, lots of people are happy to start out an apartment complex, frankly, in order to come here for a good job and work their way into a home. So those are things that apartment situation to me is a critical place to start because it provides housing for a lot of people, and it does need to be market rate. You know, I'm not deep into your studies and I see the areas that you've highlighted that you would like to see the growth happen. Unfortunately, that's not what your customers want. Your customers, I believe, for the most part, want to be in Southern Salina. I mean, if you think about the hiring, that's, you know, Vortex and Swans and Great Plains, and that's where there's land to build. So I do think that that's going to be the primary area that any builder is going to look at and that most people coming here are going to look at. The downtown revitalization is great. The Lee lofts are great, but it's limited and parking is limited and there's only so much that can be done downtown. And I appreciate what's happening there because that's helping to attract people here, but there's only so much housing there, or what I would say is in the northern part of Salina that's going to be attractive. Housing costs certainly have escalated. And I'm not in the business necessarily of knowing what a city should fund or should not fund, but we've done so much to lay the groundwork for growth, both in the city investing in the community, in the schools, the public-private partnerships. And to me, this is just one additional step forward together that can make this work. What a fortunate situation to be in a city that is attracting so many jobs and that has businesses that want to grow here. So I just encourage you to do everything we can to make that possible. Because if you don't, all of our businesses are in a bind and we don't want to go elsewhere. We want to be here. This is our home. So we just ask you to help us do that to the extent that the city is capable of doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Mayor Hodges, Todd Welsh is asking to speak.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Hi, Mayor, Commissioners, Todd Welsh.
Yes.
I start out with a little bit of a thing here. I feel like I'm living 2017 all over again. I feel like we had some of these conversations in 2017, so it's kind of interesting to hear that. And as Linda said, Salem, it's like the pot was boiling and we didn't really know, and nobody really, you know, we kind of pushed the can down the road a little bit. A couple of things that I would like to add on here. You know, from the builder standpoint, we really only have probably 4 what I want to call spec builders in Salina right now currently building. And at maximum capacity, if each one of those builders could build 20 homes. So there's a couple of spec builders in town that could maximum build maybe 20 homes a year. So that's 2 of them. So that gives us 40. Me doing it somewhat part-time and having it, I could do maybe maximum, the capacity I can handle is 15. I've got another guy in town that maybe could do 10. So let's say that's 65 new constructions that the local builders who are doing it in what a spec capacity. Now we still have some builders in town that do custom homes. When I say custom, 350, 400, 500, you could go out and hire those guys today. And that's their niche, is to build 2 or 3 $500,000 homes a year, which obviously we're not talking about. It's like, how could we get that done in the lower capacity? So for those of you who are asking Rod and Trent and things like that, it's like, what do we currently have? If we just went another year, you're going to have, you know, the 4 guys in town continue to build and pull possibly 60 permits next year. That doesn't really help us of the need. What you guys are saying on there is, how do we get in scale? Like, how do we get a couple of hundred of them to be available in the next, you know, even 24 months versus looking at 12 months? I'm not quite sure I have an answer for you, but I do know this. And there's one thing that's always continues to surface in the city of Salina, and that is, Well, let's go out and see what the other communities are doing, and then we'll do a study, and then we'll find out what we need to do based on what everybody else is doing. And why don't we figure out what we want to do? And I don't really care what everybody else is doing, because in the last 3 years, I've watched Mound Ridge do 100 homes. I've been watched 60 go in at Newton through an RHID. I'm currently participating with Hayes at 77 homes, and am traveling back and forth because they put together a program. And if you want to call Doug out at Grow Hayes, they've done a phenomenal job. And then I've watched Lindsborg, 3 local guys here in town put together a project in Lindsborg that I believe is an RHID, and we've done nothing. And I think that that's interesting, that again, I believe that there's got to be somebody, the current city commission has to either hire somebody or say, we have to go into this direction and follow what it is. And I think what's happened is we all know it was coming, but then something else happened at the field house, and now your direction is over there. And then we can always get off on another direction, because there was never anybody specifically put in charge of talking to this Ross guy out of Kansas City on how to put an RHID together, how getting these guys together to focus on directly coming up with a parcel of ground that is dedicated and funded somehow. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous with the Grow Hayes part, but my understanding was there was money that was set aside for large commercial development. And when they couldn't get the commercial development to come to town because there was no housing available. So Doug went to them and said, okay, how about we take some money from that coffer and we put it over here and let's build the housing. And they're currently purchased a piece of property for around $130,000, $140,000. They are providing all of the infrastructure, and then they are turning around and selling those lots to developers or builders 4 at a time. And you have to build a house at not to exceed 175,000. You have to build one not to exceed 200, and one that does not exceed 225,000. And so I'm working with a group of individuals up there I've partnered with, and we've selected to build 4 because that's the maximum they will give you at the time. And so we've committed to build 4 workforce housing projects in Hayes right now. And as soon as we get those 4 into contract, they'll continue to give us an additional lot to continue to build homes there. Now, it has brought up a challenge. Since that project right now, I believe if you drove up there, they are burying the water lines and all the infrastructure, but now the lumber price has come in there. So we've signed agreements with them to build homes at 175,000 that we've now went back to them and said, look, if the lumber doesn't come down, there's no way we can build these projects for 175,000. And they've agreed. Like they haven't said, okay, you're committed to it and we're going to make you lose money. Like if they want it to be a win-win for the guys that are involved. And I believe they've got 4 builders in the local area who have said, hey, we want to make it work as well. Now, yep, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Welsh, since you're involved in this project in Hayes, who in Hayes kind of takes the lead? Who's the lead agency on that? Is that something that's handled by the city? Is that who's like the lead entity? Because my position is you probably, if you really want to get something done, there has to be someone who has ownership of it, like you mentioned. And I just was curious as to who does that in Hayes. And I see Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, it's a great question because I don't know exactly Doug's role, and maybe Mitch can, because I've talked to Mitch and Eric both about this, and they're very well of the project going on. And Mitch knows Doug or has spoken to Doug, and maybe Eric has as well. My understanding was Doug maybe was he was on the chamber board, and then I think they went through a change of the person who was in charge of the chamber, and then Doug was running it for a little while, and then there must be a group called Grow Hayes. And again, as Mitch may be able to talk a little bit more about that, but it's almost somebody like a Mitch who is in charge of putting that together. And I don't know, I know what Mitch's role is, but I don't know whether he has the capacity to also now work that way. But you guys basically control Mitch and can say, okay, stop working on economic development and only work on housing, and have him become an expert in who are the players in Salina who want to come. I mean, I met with a gentleman by the name of Ross, and maybe Mike Scragg has as well, who came to town, and they were just itching to bring an RHID here. And we never could figure out how to make that happen. And I'm not sure what happened to him. And I think he's the one who went to Mound Ridge and in Newton and has done some other projects. So how do we get back in touch with that guy and make that work? You know, we have our own OPG here in town who's done great projects who know how to do a lot of that stuff, but I imagine they're at capacity as well. I've also heard, I think they split up and one part went one way and the other. So I'm not really sure what they're going on now. So I feel like I've spoke a lot, but I just wanted to make sure we understood what was going on. My philosophy, now I'm going to put my real estate hat on versus my developer or builder hat. What is happening in our community right now is, and I'm going to go back to the basic streets again. We need the Ralphs, the Carls, the Lewis, the Nortons houses. We need that stock of housing, which used to be $129,000. And I just sold one on Norton last night that was listed at 164 and we had to buy it for 170. And that house 3 years ago was 145. And today it's 170 because that's what they're looking for. I still don't believe that the Kubotas of the worlds, the Great Plains and the One Visions are not coming down here to purchase $350,000 homes. And they're not coming down here to purchase what our housing stock is today, which is a $95,000 or $100,000 home. They're looking for a 3-bedroom, 1 or 2 bath. Again, Carl Lewis Max, that central location right there that they can move their family to and feel safe. And that's what I'm trying to relocate to town. And when they come here, they're spending $20,000, $30,000 more than what they wanted to. I'm still the believer that says, the housings that you disagree that I'm building that are 250 and 300,000, I am not building for One Vision, Great Plains, or the other one. I'm building it for the lady who currently, or the family that currently lives on Max, Lewis, Carl, and Norton, because I need those homes. And the only way to get those homes to come available, because we can't build $140,000 homes, the only way to get those available is to show them homes that are 275 and take the equity from those homes that they purchased at $89,000, $95,000 and move them up into a larger home that's there. That's
you. And I hate to cut you off, but I know you have some other people that would
I agree.
like to speak. So thank you. No, I really
Yep.
appreciate hearing your perspective. Thank you, Mr. Welch.
Yep.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? And we'll try to get everybody in if possible. Mr. Robinson? Can we, you're unmuted? Okay, great. Thanks. Go ahead.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's right. I have talked with Doug. He runs the Grow Hayes organization. He started as a volunteer and then they hired him after their previous director was let go. Their funding that Todd was talking about was funds that were directed for industrial development that they were not having much success on. Plus, there was the need for housing in their community. So they had a group, their board went that way, put Doug on the hunt for property that they could identify. They also had a person make a donation that helped reduce the land costs. And then they had their funding with their money they'd had for many years. So that's really starting this spring, will really be taken off because the weather, they didn't get their utilities in this fall. So a good plan, it appears. Targeting the prices, as Todd again said, the cost of the land, or not the land, but the construction cost has definitely impacted everybody we've been talking with. I've also had some discussions with people out of Iowa, Nebraska. One community up there has even had their own apartment complex that they developed and they're owning. Then there's they're also doing single family homes. So they're getting very aggressive. So I'm going to be having a conversation with that community later this week and learn more about the details. So we have been doing a lot of research. Eric has been doing a lot of research. So, this is kind of a pivot situation for our group. We have not, we've elevated housing as a priority within our group because we've been talking about, we see what's coming and we've got to react to that. If not, those projects could easily go somewhere else, or maybe the expansion might be reduced in size and could locate somewhere else. So we're very concerned and want to, move it as fast as we can to get some construction going. We've got a couple of good projects that they seem to be very strong builders. A lot of the question is where they're going, they're able to get incentives from the community. So we've just got to figure out what can we live with and what will make these projects doable within Salina. And for the long term, Mayor, you mentioned some of the things that's happened. The school system has invested 110 million, the downtown investment, all these things are part of the whole package to make the community successful. Housing is one of those things to have as a piece of that package. Now, going back to Commissioner Hoppick's comments about wanting to get the details on wage levels, job numbers, all that, we can easily get with our employers and get that information as you asked for.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Or I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you?
Yes, I'm letting somebody else talk.
Okay, great. Thanks. Sorry. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Mayor Hodges, there aren't any hands raised at the current time, so if somebody thinks they have, I'm not seeing it. And
Okay.
Eric Brown has his hand up.
Yeah, Eric Brown from the Chamber of Commerce has his hand raised. If you could unmute him, I'd appreciate it. Are you there, Eric?
Yeah, Eric, you'll okay, there you go.
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you again for your time. I wanted to make sure to allow any of the other businesses or lenders on the, it looks like on the call to make some comments, but I'll go ahead and jump in. One of the things that we talked about, what's critical, hearing, talking to Todd and understanding what's happening around our need for labor. I think anything under $250,000, whether it's single family home, whether it's high density housing, I mean, though $250,000 in building those homes is a need. I sent you that letter from Realtor Steve Thompson. As of Tuesday last week, there was 39 houses on the market on the MLS in Saline County, or I'm sorry, in the city of Salina. So we know that there's a shortage there. One of the things that hasn't been discussed yet is the need for student housing. We talk about Kansas Wesleyan, K-State Polytechnic, Salina Tech, KU School of Medicine as well, all in expansion mode right now. The other thing to think about is that labor availability in that long term. If we can't get our students in or students into those programs and capture them, that's part of what, on a holistic picture, what we've been doing as a community when Mitch talks about the River Project or the Downtown Project or whatever it may be. We are listening as a community and really trying to give those amenities to those students who are becoming our labor force long term. Obviously, one of the things that I do want to stress is that the opportunity is now. I mean, the time is of the essence to get this going. Obviously, if we wait another 3 or 4 months to make a decision or wait on the housing study, I mean, that's an opportunity for those current developers that are looking at Salina to move on. Developers right now, not all developers are created equal. Not all investors are created equal. We do know what we have to work with, those 7 that have approached the city at this point, and understanding that this planning perfection, it just cannot, it's maybe not plausible. It's not something that can be done quickly when we know the need is there right now. The other thing that we're to kind of keep in mind is the competitive environment that these developers are looking at. This is not something that's Salina specific. So they can go to markets that have a lot of opportunities, much like ours. And then they can go to markets, some of those markets have less risk. Ours is inherently a little more risky. And that's why you're seeing some of these developers ask for these tax abatements or these housing incentives to put these projects up. So we have a good amount of interest there. And one of the things that I would caution against is trying to create a holistic ordinance or holistic approach to this rather than taking these developers and these projects one by one and making sure that those projects pencil for for the community. A lot has happened in the last 10 years to put ourselves in this position to be able to support our businesses. You've seen what the letters you've received, the information you've received around just strictly the manufacturers. We're not talking about the hospital, the education sector either, that are both in-demand high wage positions. So if we want to be able to grow our community, I would definitely ask you to support looking at these developers and getting this started sooner rather than later, as we hope to really support everything that's happening right now, and that's a big piece of that. So the wage question that Commissioner Hoppick discussed, I'm actually looking at the 2020 wage survey from the state of Kansas. So I've been able to look at at least 6 different occupational codes under production, and those range anywhere from $13.50 an hour to $26.35 an hour in Saline County. So those kind of aggregate numbers we can put together rather quickly and get those to you. So again, thank you. I've probably said enough, but if you have questions, anything else that I can help with, please let me know.
Mayor, if I could,
Yes.
generally, for the larger developers from outside of Saline County, do they come with their own financing, or is that something that our local lenders have to get involved with, or should be involved with? I shouldn't say have to.
You know, that it really depends on the developer and the way that they structure their deals. Those news stories that were referenced earlier, I had a developer out of Canton, Massachusetts contact me on Sunday looking for more information. And so those developers, they may be pulling investors from the East Coast, from the West Coast. There could be investors right here in the Midwest that want to keep their money locally, both from an altruistic standpoint. But I can't speak to the lenders on that side, but the investors can come from anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor,
Madam Mayor.
Hodges, Kent Buer had his hand up
Oh,
to speak. Kent Buer from First Bank.
okay, great. And I think Ms. Driscoll was going to say something. Can you hold on to that for just a minute? We have about 8 to 10 more minutes to take comments and questions. Let's go ahead and hear from Mr. Buer, and then maybe we can go back to Ms. Driscoll if that's all right.
Okay, can you hear me, Madam Mayor?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Buer.
Hey, thank you very much. I'll speak quick because I know you have other people who want to talk. I've been working in downtown Salina in the financial industry for 21 years. I remember when we were very sleepy downtown. The stars have aligned for Salina. We should be doing backflips, and I think a lot of people are. The opportunity, and if we look at what the amount of money that just Tony's Pizza alone is going to invest in our community, if that's the only project we were talking about, we would still need to be talking about, let's get some more houses built. Several people have commented, is there money to the land? Are the local lenders willing to step up? If bigger projects come in, will the local lenders give an opportunity, get an opportunity? My comment is, if there's a good project, there is money to lend. Banks want to lend money for good projects. If there's a big out-of-town developer that comes from Kansas City and he already has this financing, that's fine. We shouldn't say, hang on, we need to let the local lenders have an opportunity. The local lenders need to be doing their job and be out there proactively. It's capitalism. It works very well. So don't worry about the lenders. We're ready to help the community, and we're willing to partner together where needed. I just encourage you not to worry about the holistic approach and do more studies. Our guts are strong. There is so much opportunity here that we're going to miss it if we don't get some housing going. So if anybody has any questions, I can answer to it if I can, but I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Buer. I appreciate it. Ms. Driscoll, I think you had something to add.
Yeah, I was just going to note that, when we talk about economic incentives, we think about incentivizing each individual project. But when we talk about projects like Hayes, or we look at Lawrence and their land trust and land bank, it's worth noting that the success of those types of programs had a lot of money behind them. money was redirected. I think it was indicated from what was supposed to be industrial incentives now into residential in Hayes. Lawrence had the same thing. They had a large project, I think a stadium, finish under budget. They took the money from that project and allocated it towards their land bank and land trust. So those are really creative, out of the box programs that have been very successful, but I think it's worth noting that they have a large amount of financial contribution from somewhere behind them. And typically they weren't from grants or federal programs, they were from the municipality. So, you know, it's still an incentive program that we're creating if we do something like that, and we'll take funding in order for them to be successful.
It only takes money. We just, yeah, I hear you. That's a great point. Thank you very much, Ms. Driscoll. I don't mean to be flip, but well, we can always use more cash.
This Commissioner Hoppick here, one of the things that I think was said is, you know, updating the housing study is not a bad idea, but I've seen us do this type of thing before and it drags on, and I kind of agree, and I can't remember if it was Mr. Brown or who, but we are in a bit of a crunch. And if we don't kind of allow some developers to come to us with their plans, and I hope if they're listening that they'll do that we can start brainstorming about making some of this happen. Because if we wait through the summer, we get into the winter months again, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. And I think we are at a critical time, and I think we need to really be aggressive on this right now.
This is Commissioner Ryan. I'd like to echo that. I'm a little concerned that we're going to engage in paralysis by analysis. So there's enough need, short-term need, and we know what we need in apartments, that we need to step up and take some risk.
Well, I don't
solve
know
this problem. So we can continue to move forward to gather the other information that we need, but there's some obvious choices that we need to make now, or as soon as possible.
This is Commissioner Franz. I would concur with both of those comments. I think that, you know, I'm thinking of it as kind of a two-part thing, and that is we need to do something fairly quickly and fairly timely, and then we also need to sit back and say, okay, what other components can we draw into this to make it work? You know, Mr. Welch deals mostly in single family or two family stock, is my understanding, and his idea is great. If we can free up, you know, those houses on Max and Carl and Leslie, and you know that central Salina that can be had for 200, then that is a market we need to address. But that is compared to what I perceive as the need right now, that's kind of nibbling at the edges, and I think we need to do something. My preference is William thing is it sounds like we need, you know, apartments, multifamily, something that people can move into, live for a couple of years, and then as other markets, other homes become available, they can move out to. But I have a real sense of urgency about that. I mean, we've got people coming to town now who are having difficulty finding places to live. And I certainly don't want to create the possibility of, you know, we used to have trouble providing jobs, and now we've got the jobs, but we don't have any places for people to live. It's kind of a good problem to have, I think, but we do need to step forward to address it, I think, as quickly as possible. So I'm kind of with Commissioner Hoppick. I think it's fine to go ahead and update the study, but I also think we need to talk about and take some action on some options, you know, solar pilot project, if nothing else, and let's see if we can make something work reasonably quickly.
So Mike Scraig here. We have developers that are ready, willing, and able to bring forward a proposal. If that is the consensus of the commission, we can kind of take a dual approach here and bring forward the proposals that we have, provide you additional detail about their proposed projects and finances and request. And if that's acceptable to you, we can certainly facilitate that as we also work on the housing study.
I would like to see that happen.
Mayor Hodges, I would like to see that happen too. And I think Commissioner France articulated it very well, and some of the other commissioners too. I think it does need to be a two-part approach, because even as we're trying to alleviate the acute needs, which I am not disagreeing that exist. I mean, they do. But I think we also need to be looking at how we craft a policy that's going to be a consistent policy that can guide us in the future. I've wished that we had an economic development policy that helps us evaluate some of the projects we look at. And I think it would be helpful for future housing projects. That being said, I don't think that we need to hold everything up to wait for that, but it is something that needs to be developed concurrently with looking immediately at proposals that can help us right away.
Commissioner Day, I agree with reviewing the proposals, but that holistic approach can't be totally abandoned. There's no point in bringing people here if you don't have a school for the kids to go to. If the employees can't go to work because there's no daycare, you haven't really helped anything.
Right.
So as part of the housing development, there's going to have to be another rail running parallel at the same time working on these other issues.
Great. All right. It's 3:55. I guess this would be the last call if anybody wants to share anything. We have another minute or two. Otherwise, we will adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Mr. Bergkamp has his hand raised. Could we make sure he's unmuted, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. The other thing I would encourage city staff and commission to look at is the internal workings of the city. My experience working with the city and building is rather dated, but I've had conversations recently with people that are not represented on this call. But the city of Salina has a reputation of moving rather slow on granting building permits and then asking for information that's just atypical. And so when you're talking about speed, I agree with that completely, but I would encourage you to look internal as well and see what the city can do to improve that situation in your own staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bergkamp. All right. Thank you all very much for being here today. Again, if there's anyone who didn't get the opportunity to speak and you'd like to reach out to the City Commission, we can be reached at citycommission@salina.org. And we will adjourn for 4 minutes so everyone can have a brief break, and we will be back.
Procedurally, do we cut the camera and the mic and then just?
Yeah, you can just
Okay.
cut your camera and the mic, and then you can rejoin.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll mute everybody.
Thank you, Mayor.
Person, you all.
Mayor Hodges, can you hear me? You're muted.
Up, I am muted.
Cheryl's out today, so I'm sitting in for her.
Oh, great.
Which
Awesome.
also-
Wow.
Which also
I
means
learned about all sorts of new skills that our staff can just adapt to. This
That's
is
right.
amazing. You guys are awesome.
we might have to change some of the documentation. So if you're going to come by and sign tomorrow afternoon would be best for us, or Wednesday, either day.
Okay, I may do it Wednesday morning just to make sure that everything, or you can just email me whenever they're ready and
Sure.
I'll be by. I'm very flexible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I hear the sirens. So I gather we're right at 4 o'clock, but I see that we haven't been joined yet by Commissioners Ryan. There's Commissioner Ryan and there's Commissioner Hoppick.
You hear sirens?
Yeah, it's the tornado siren.
Yeah, I'm a little worried. I can't hear it in my office here. I'm gonna have to.
So are we gonna have to go back and have this
First
whole
Monday.
discussion about the sirens only need to be audible if you're outside? To death? Okay, sorry.
Commissioner Davis, if we see you disappear, we'll let you know you've blown away.
It'd be nice to be remembered in some form or fashion.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock and I will call the February 1st, 2021 Salina City Commission meeting to order, and we'll begin by confirming with staff that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been provided.
Yes, it has.
Thank you very much. With that, we will proceed with roll call.
Mayor Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here,
Commissioner Franz,
Here,
Commissioner Hoppick,
Uh-oh.
Oh, he's muted.
Muted.
There, now can you hear me? Here.
Yes,
Got too many-
Hoppick,
too many buttons.
yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
All right. Despite the siren, if you will join me, please, for a moment of silence.
And then it opens all the participants, and I invite the, yeah, and it's you and the attorney.
Thank you. We'll move into awards and proclamations.
Item 3.1, the month of February 2021 as Black History Month in the city of Salina. Sandra Beverly will read the proclamation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
there.
I brought along two people with me, my grandchildren, Gabriel and Scarlett, because I think they needed to be here to hear this. The proclamation as reads, whereas during the month of February, we honor the men, women, and children who fought for freedom, equality, and living the pursuit of happiness. We celebrate Black History Month to show our gratitude to those like Harriet Tubman, who was one of many that risked her life to free slaves through the Underground Railroad. We recognize the lost souls that were killed or imprisoned fighting for the right for Black children to go to school with white children, for Blacks to have the right to vote, for Jesse Owens to become the first African-American to win 4 gold medals at the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, Germany. And whereas even today, the Black community has had to rise up and fight for their voices to be heard. They are fighting for the souls who were murdered. They are showing young generations how to be proud of their skin color. The Black community is showing the invisible chains that are still on them and how they're finally breaking the shackles off. And they're saying no more injustice, no more Black men, women, or children being killed, no more silence. Whereas there is no longer a responsibility, it is a duty to show the inequalities, the injustices which still go on to this day. It is a time for us to unite and rise up to the Black community to secure their birthright and secure our birthright to freedom. As we mark the 45th year of Black History Month, let us reflect on all that occurred this past year in 2020. Let us remember the sacrifices made by people of different colors and different generations to unite and march with the Black community. Let us remember how they were shot with tear gas in their faces, but they still kept going. They kept marching forward until one day, I Have a Dream will no longer be just a historical speech, but it will be the life Black people and others finally achieve. Now, therefore, I, Melissa Rose Hodges, Mayor of the City of Salina, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2021 Black History Month and urge that every citizen of Salina join me in celebrating the diversity and individual character of each one of our neighbors by recognizing that a fundamental strength of our community is based on the diversity among us. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Salina, Kansas to be affixed this day, February 1st, 2021. Melissa Rose Hodges, Honorable Mayor, City of Salina.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beverly. I really appreciate you getting the proclamation done. This is so very important. I know that 2021 has presented more challenges still with doing things virtually. Are there any events or things that you would like to share with the community?
The national theme for Black History Month this year is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. And that's part of the reason I wanted my grandchildren behind me while we were doing this, because I would have brought them to the building to see this because of that. Everything is happening virtually. We just had our NAACP state meeting this last weekend, and that was virtually. It's a whole new world and we're getting used to it, but I hope we get back to some semblance of what we had before. I also have for each of the commissioners a calendar, and it's from the Equal Justice Initiative. And that is the organization that is helping myself. There's a group here in Salina called the Dana Adams Project, and we are trying to get things in line so that we can have a marker here in Salina. Our target date is February 2022 to have an installation of a marker in remembrance of Dana Adams, who was lynched in Saline County. So those are some of the things that I do know about. I know churches are putting on different programs. I would just encourage everyone to remember to practice grace, remember we're all human, and to look at each other as human first and color second.
Wow. Thank you, Ms. Beverly, and thank you for your work on behalf of Dana Adams, because I only learned about Mr. Adams 2 or 3 years ago when I was on the commission. And if it hadn't been for people bringing this to our attention, it's lost to history, and it's so important not to lose that. So thank you to Scarlett, and I'm sorry I missed your grandson's name.
Gabriel.
Scarlett and Gabriel, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you all for the important work that you're doing. Thanks, Sandy. It's good to see you.
Hope to see you all soon in person. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. All right.
We're done. Now you can act crazy. You were on TV.
I thought she was talking to us, and I was like, not quite yet, not quite yet. We have to go faster. All right, we had another proclamation added to the agenda. Is that right?
That's correct. Item 3.2, the month of February 2021 as Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month in the City of Salina. Caitlin Butts will read the proclamation.
Hi, everyone. I'll just get right to it. Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas 1 in 3 adolescents in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner, a figure that far exceeds victimization rates for other types of violence affecting youth. And whereas females between the ages of 16 and 24 are most vulnerable to intimate partner and sexual violence, experiencing abuse at a rate almost triple the national average. And whereas high school students who experience physical violence in a dating relationship are more likely to use drugs and alcohol, are at greater risk of suicide, and are much more likely to carry patterns of abuse into future relationships. And whereas young people victimized by dating partner are more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior and unhealthy dieting behaviors, and the experience may disrupt normal development of self-esteem and body image. And whereas nearly half of teens who experience dating violence report that incidents of abuse took place in a school building or on school grounds. And whereas only 33% of teens who are in an abusive relationship ever tell anyone about the abuse, and 81% of parents surveyed either believe teen dating violence is not an issue or admit they do not know if it is one. And whereas by providing young people, parents, and professionals with education about healthy relationships, warning signs of abuse, and relationship skills, and by changing attitudes that support violence, we recognize that dating violence can be prevented. And whereas the Domestic Violence Association of Central Kansas needs all of Salina to work toward ending teen dating violence by empowering young people to develop healthier relationships, assisting victims in assessing the information and supportive services they need, creating better and more resources for young people in need, instituting effective intervention and prevention policies in schools, and engaging in discussions with family members and peers to promote awareness and prevention of the quiet epidemic of teen dating violence. Now, therefore, the City of Salina Board of Commissioners hereby designates February 2021 as Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month and urges citizens to recognize and assist all those who serve the rights and needs of victims of teen dating violence.
Thank you very much, Ms. Butts. Does DVAC or are there any other sponsors in the community that have events, virtual or otherwise, going on to talk about teen dating violence?
Right. We specifically, well, I'll start as a whole nation. Like the Respect Week for teen dating violence is February 8th through the 14th. And the theme of the whole month actually is Know Your Worth. And then there's like a Wear Orange Day, which is Tuesday, February 9th, to like draw attention to the issue. And then specifically at DVAC, we're doing a teen dating violence 101 presentation. And that you can get all the link through our Facebook. And that will be February 25th at 11 a.m. And that has like the Zoom link on there and you can sign up through there. And then as well as all month, I'll be posting just stats and just general information on all of our social media pages. So
great. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you're able to get all of those things coordinated and out there at a time where it's really difficult to do that. And we'll be looking to your Facebook page for, especially on February 25th when you have
at 11 a.m. Yeah.
At 11
And
a.m.
there's a sign up and we also have like an Eventbrite out, but yeah, so we'll do a Zoom training for that. So
perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Before we get to Citizens Forum, I had asked City Manager Mike Scragg to begin updating us very quickly on the stats and the trends in the community where coronavirus is concerned from the previous week.
Sure. The data that I have is going to compare what was reported Friday of last week to Friday of the week prior. The county puts out information on Mondays, but I think that's probably happening simultaneously. So as in terms of new cases, they reported 196 new cases, which is 50 less than they reported a week prior. Active cases were reported as 1,789, which is 66 less than the week prior. Total recoveries are at 3,637. That's 256 additional recoveries since the week prior. Hospitalizations were at 22, which is 3 more than a week ago, which was at 19. And then total deaths are at 92, which represents 6 additional deaths in the past week.
Thank you. I mean, it's great to hear about the number of cases going down. And just as a reminder to folks who are watching, you can get on Saline County's website and sign up both for updates, 3 times a week updates, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with the most recent coronavirus information, and Tuesday, Thursday vaccination updates. And we are in phase 2 of our vaccinations. So hopefully those will proceed quickly. That brings us to Citizens Forum. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda?
And Mike Scragg Mayor, if I may, we probably
Sorry.
need to call on Warren.
Yes,
to-
sorry, instructions.
Yes, both that, and then I'll touch on executive session and how we'll handle that since we have one on the agenda as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So, sorry. I'm trying to screen share and I'm not the host. So,
I can make you host if you want.
yes, that would probably be ideal. What I will say while Brad is doing that is if you are phoning in rather than going through the app or going through the Zoom website, you will need to hit *9 if you are called in and you would like to raise your hand to comment during the meeting. I will note too, Madam Mayor, just if some of these issues have a lot of folks and you ask meeting moderator to call on people, they need a minute to slide through that. We're learning for larger meetings, there's a lot of people to keep an eye out for. With that, screen sharing. Okay. Brad, it doesn't seem to be working. So I will walk through this because this is not my day for technology. So what you will find is in the lower part of your screen, if you are in the actual website, you will see an icon that says participants. It's got two little people. If you click on that, you can see who's in the meeting. If you highlight yourself, you will pop up and it will show a little yellow hand and you can indicate you want to speak during the meeting. That will highlight it for the host, knowing that you need to speak. At that point, the mayor will identify you once she calls for comments, and we will go through hand by hand. Your hand will be unclicked once your comments are taken, indicating that your comment has been taken. There is a chat feature, so if you have questions during the meeting, you can see that under More. That's indicated with the three little dots that are in that same menu bar that are either at the bottom of your screen if you're using the app on your web browser. If you're in the app on either your phone or an iPad, that bar may appear in the upper right-hand corner. That bar also has other features where you can raise your hand and chat, as I mentioned. So the key is look for your menu bar, either look for the participant icon or look for the three dots that are there to access either of those. And like I said, if you called in, you can raise your hand by hitting *9.
And then if I could add on with respect to executive session, the call, we kind of refer to it as the call, but the Zoom meeting will remain in place. If you're a member of the public, a side room will be created where the individuals that are going into the executive session will receive an invitation from the host and they'll go into a side room. The meeting will stay active. You can stay on the line. You don't need to do anything in terms of getting off and dialing back in. Once the executive session is concluded, the participants in the executive session will return to that main meeting and we'll pick up where we left off. So it's very similar to the approach that we had applied physically. Everyone can stay put. Those in the executive session will leave and go to an alternate meeting. When that's done, they'll conclude and return back to the group that's standing by. So if you're a member of the public, essentially you really don't need to do anything other than stay on the line and stand by as the executive session is happening elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Scragg and Ms. Driscoll. And the only other thing that I have to add is in the event that you can't find the buttons that we were referring to in order to virtually raise your hand, if all else fails, turn on your camera and physically raise your hand so that we can recognize you. And now that we've got that piece of business out of the way, are there any citizens that would like to virtually or physically raise their hand or hit *9 if you're calling in to make comments on any item not on today's agenda? I don't see anyone. Can I confirm that with staff that?
Yes, Commissioner Hodges, Mayor Hodges, I do not have anybody who's expressed an interest at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. And thank you for helping us out with our technology needs today too. That will bring us to public hearings and items scheduled for a certain time, which we don't have any. That takes us to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of January 25, 2021. Item 6.2, resolution number 21-7934, concluding the 2020 evaluation of the city manager's performance. Item 6.3, consider resolution number 21-7931, authorizing and providing for the replacement of 4 rooftop HVAC units in Great Plains Manufacturing Convention Hall and relocation of HVAC controls for these units to connect to the main floor control system at Tony's Pizza Event Center, and authorizing the issuance of temporary notes and/or general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost thereof. Item 6.4, consider resolution number 21-7932, authorizing and providing for the replacement of portable basketball floors at Tony's Pizza Event Center, and authorizing the issuance of temporary notes and/or general obligation bonds of the city to pay the cost thereof.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a commissioner would like to have removed for discussion?
Commissioner Davis, 6.2.
Thank you. We'll remove item 6.2. Anyone else?
Commissioner Ryan, Mayor, I would move we approve the 6.1, 6.3, and 6.4 as presented.
Commissioner Davis, second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 6.1, 6.3, and 6.4. May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. And that motion passes 5-0, which will bring us back to item 6.2. And I would like to thank Vice Mayor Davis for pulling this off the agenda. If it's all right with you, Commissioner Davis, I would like to read the resolution.
That was all I was going to ask you to do. Your voice would be very appropriate for this.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, I wanted to read, we just, first of all, to give this some context, the City Commission annually reviews the city manager's job performance, and we have just completed that annual evaluation. And normally we take action if there's an adjustment to the city manager's pay or benefits or anything like that. And this year, despite an outstanding performance evaluation, City Manager Mike Scragg opted not to accept a raise or a bonus because of wanting to lead by example and acknowledge that employees throughout our organization weren't going to be receiving the same benefit that he would. So I want to thank him also for his leadership in making that decision. And something that is becoming increasingly apparent to me, both in the previous study session and in reflecting upon this resolution and Mr. Scragg's performance evaluation, we talk a lot in our organization about right sizing. And generally that means cutting back, reassignment, staff taking on more responsibility. But I hope that as we work on strategic planning in the months ahead and as our organization moves forward, we also take the time to acknowledge that sometimes right sizing means admitting that maybe we need more help in a certain area. And sometimes those areas are very easy to see when it's not having parks mowed consistently over the summer. And sometimes it's things that are more difficult to see when it's like in development services or the city manager's office. And we're trying to get a lot of initiatives done with not a lot of staff. So hopefully that's a conversation we can continue into 2021 and beyond about what right sizing within our organization truly means. At any rate, off the soapbox, here's resolution number 21-7934. A resolution concluding the 2020 evaluation of the city manager's performance. Be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Salina, Kansas, whereas the governing body has completed its 2020 performance evaluation for city manager Michael D. Scragg, and whereas the year 2020 presented unparalleled challenges for the city of Salina and its citizens, from the human and financial toll of a deadly pandemic to long deferred community conversations about race and policing, and whereas Michael D. Scragg demonstrated dedicated service to the city of Salina by ensuring that city employees were kept whole financially while protecting the city's financial position during COVID-19, facilitating the development of a new citizen review board for the Salina Police Department, concluding settlement negotiations with the United States government for Schilling Air Force Base groundwater remediation, working with Saline County to finalize the Expo Center lease and a new emergency radio communication system, and coordinating incentive packages to secure major business expansions for Schwann's Global Supply Chain and Great Plains Manufacturing. And whereas such service and dedication to his job and the interests of the city of Salina are worthy of public recognition, even while Mr. Scragg declined to accept a raise or a bonus. So now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Salina, Kansas, Section 1, that an official expression of gratitude and appreciation should be extended to Michael D. Scragg for his dedication and faithful service for the city of Salina, Kansas during challenging times. Section 2, that the city clerk is hereby directed to have this resolution delivered to Michael D. Scragg, adopted by the Board of Commissioners and signed this first day of February 2021. Michael L. Hoppick, 2020 mayor, and Melissa Rose Hodges, 2021 mayor. Commissioner Hoppick directed the evaluation process and did a great job, and I think we're set up for consistent evaluations in the future. And then the final thing I'd like to note is Mr. Bankston noted that it is Happy Birthday Salina Day, or at least Happy Birthday Salina City Manager Day, because 100 years ago today, the citizens of Salina, Kansas voted to adopt the city manager form of government. So it's appropriate that we're recognizing Mr. Scragg today, as well as celebrating 100 years of professional city management. And with that, I'm done talking. Is there anyone else that has anything to add?
Commissioner Hoppick here again. I think you said it very well. We were fortunate to have Mr. Scragg as our leader during 2020, and the city financially is much better off than we were to start, which I'm not sure how many other communities, not only in the state of Kansas, but around the United States can say that. So thank you. Thanks not only to Mike, but to his staff for their work during a trying time. And with that, I would move that we approve item 6.2, being resolution number 21-7934.
Commissioner Davis, second.
We have a motion and a second to accept resolution number 21-7934. Could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Scragg.
If I may, I thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored to serve, and none of what you described happened on I didn't do any of that alone, which in part is one of the reasons that I declined a raise or a bonus, recognizing that there are a ton of people in this organization that help contribute to that success. And this is my 2020 evaluation. None of those employees were eligible for a merit increase because of our budget, and so didn't think it was appropriate for me to be treated any differently. The other thing that I think today might actually highlight just a little bit in terms of how our organization steps up. For those that aren't aware, the deputy city manager, Jacob Wood, was serving as our host for these Zoom meetings. He's deployed for Army Reserve training, so Lauren Driscoll stepped up. Well, then she has a meaty presentation to make today, so Brad Anderson steps up. Our city clerk position, the city clerk took another opportunity in the organization. Glad to keep her in the organization. So the deputy city clerk steps up. Well, she's out sick today, so Debbie Peck steps up. It's just an example of how we function. And as we went through this year, we certainly put in a lot more hours than a typical year, and everybody in their function pulled in the same direction without questioning it. They saw the need for the organization. They saw the need for the community, and I'm just thankful that to be able to lead the organization that we do have. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scragg. With that, we'll move on to item 7.1.
Item 7.1, second reading ordinance number 21-11050, amending the future land use map of the Salina, Kansas Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use designation of property located on Cortlandt Circle, south of Schilling Road and west of South Ohio Street, from future employment to future neighborhood center, and amending the text of the narrative describing the neighborhood center land use category of the Salina Comprehensive Plan to add C5 and PC5 to the list of potential zoning districts under the neighborhood center land use category.
Thank you. Mayor Hodges. Ordinance number 21-11050 was passed on first reading on January 25th, 2021. Since that time, no comments have been received. Do any commissioners have questions or comments about this item?
No.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? And we'll give this a few seconds. Actually, I think there's maybe only one or two citizens on. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Commissioner Hoppick here. I move that we approve on second reading ordinance number 21-11050.
Commissioner Ryan, second.
We have a motion and a second to pass ordinance number 21-11050 on second reading. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Item 7.2.
Item 7.2, second reading ordinance number 21-11051, changing the zoning district classification from PC6, planned heavy commercial, to PC5, planned service commercial, for the property that is legally described as lots 1 through 5, block 4, and lots 1 through 4, block 5, in the corrected plat of Liberty Edition number 2, in addition to the city of Salina, Saline County, Kansas.
Ordinance number 21-11051 was passed on first reading on January 25th, 2021. Since that time, no comments have been received. Are there any comments or questions from the commission? No. Any comments or questions from the public? I'm assuming that's no.
Not seeing any indication of interest from the public to speak on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Commissioner Ryan, Mayor, I move we approve on second reading ordinance number 21-11051.
Commissioner Franz, second.
We have a motion and a second to pass ordinance number 21-11051 on second reading. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Which takes us to item 7.3.
Item 7.3, resolution number 21-7935, authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease with the Saline County Fair Association.
Mr. Scragg.
Yes, Mike Scragg here. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I am confident that you are well aware that our lease with Saline County for the rodeo arena and grounds expired at the end of 2020. That was the result of the negotiated arrangement for renewal of the lease. With that expiration, responsibility for those grounds reverted back to the city. We had previously discussed that, and you as a governing body had indicated that you did not wish to assume responsibility for improving the buildings and site for the continued use as a rodeo grounds. In fact, we discussed the likely possibility that we would be financially responsible for demolition and site just grading and in preparation to return that to a greenfield site if nothing else. Along that same timeline as we were negotiating with Saline County, we were approached by a group of volunteers calling themselves Salina Net Generations, indicating an interest to redevelop that site as well as the Kenwood Pool site into a tennis complex. And those discussions are ongoing. And then as the lease was transitioned, the Saline County Fair Association reached out and inquired about the possibility of leasing the rodeo arena and grounds in that intervening time, recognizing that there was kind of a short-term transition possible and recognizing the city's intent to ultimately clear the site. And so staff has been actively negotiating a short-term lease with a representative of the Saline County Fair Association to transfer full responsibility and liability to the Fair Association, acknowledging the city's intent to demolish the structures and clear the site, and then also balancing the timing of the fair for 2021 and the possibility that Salina Net Generations will be back to you and would like to proceed as early as yet this year. So then as all that kind of transition, we also had more recent inquiries from citizens about whether the city would entertain continuing using the location as a dog park. Saline County had operated it as a dog park while it was under their lease. That discontinued when the lease expired. And so I've communicated with the individual citizens that have inquired that the staff's recommendation prior to that inquiry was, and it continues to be, that we enter into first and foremost, we enter into a lease with the Saline County Fair Association that fully transfers responsibility for the facility, that a hybrid use involving multiple parties and differing uses and scheduling would be not only represent some liability, but would just be impractical. And so the lease that's before you defers to the Saline County Fair Association in terms of them having discretion to operate it as a dog park if they so choose. The lease has been negotiated with the Fair Association. They've confirmed that it's acceptable, and it does provide that they can sublease the facilities for other, and this is wording that we came up with trying to identify that, just reinforce the temporary nature of all this. So they can sublease it for other one-time, non-repetitive uses conducted by the Fair Association or its subleasees prior to the 2021 fair. And then I would note that Equifest has inquired of me directly, and I've referred them to the representative of the Fair Association about the possibility of using the facility for their event in March. With respect to finances and costs, there's no direct fiscal expense to the city as it relates to this lease item. We have had conversations previously about the estimated cost of demolishing the rodeo arena and accessory structures, and that estimate is $75,000. And then the estimate for the Kenwood Pool site for the pool, not necessarily the pool building, is an additional $106,000. Those costs are not attributable to acting on this lease, nor are they directly attributable to the proposed tennis complex. Those are assuming that neither one of those happened and we accepted responsibility for those. Those would be independent costs that we would have to address at some point. With respect to your possible actions, we've identified the typical lineup of approval, amending, postponing, or taking no action, which would result in denial. I do want to acknowledge that Mayor Hodges pointed out this morning, rightfully so, that the way that the lease is currently written, it's not entirely clear about the Fair Association's discretion with respect to being able to operate it as a dog park. And as I've said, this is all set up to defer to the Fair Association. I don't want to convey their intent in any way other than the fact that they acknowledged it and said they'd take it under advisement. But the two proposed amendments that would clarify that are within the recitals. Recital D, the insertion of a new letter C that reads continued use of the arena stage area as a dog park at the discretion of the SCFA, and then renumbering what was C to D, and would continue to read removal of the Saline County Fair Association's personal property from the arena facilities after the 2021 fair. And additionally, section 4.1 authorized uses would need the same amendment. Insertion of a new C to read continued use of the arena staging area as a dog park at the discretion of the SCFA, and then re-lettering C to D, and it continuing to read removal of the personal property and dirt owned by the SCFA from the arena facilities after the 2021 fair. So staff's recommendation would be that you that you approve the lease with the proposed amendments that I just described. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Davis, just one question. If for whatever reason the tennis project were to proceed much sooner than expected, is there a minimum amount of notification that has to be given to the fair board that could be terminated early?
Well, actually, we discussed that with representatives of Salina Net Generation, and the conversation we had was we could proceed with demolition of the pool site, the Kenwood pool site, and so it seemed likely that even if we were able to get things moving, we could phase the work in such a way that they could be working at the pool site while the fair is going on, and then they could transition to the rodeo grounds once the fair is completed and moved out. So I have to commend Salina Net Generations. They've been eminently reasonable in all these conversations, and were helpful in finding a balance.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there anyone from the public who has a question or a comment about the lease?
Mayor Hodges, I'm not seeing any indication of people wanting to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. With that, I'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion or action.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just one, Commissioner Davis, one other question. If this is approved, is there going to be a way to reach the fair board for citizens to inquire of them about using the area as a dog park?
Yes, I've had that conversation with the representative. I don't want to prematurely offer up someone and have them be inundated, but I'll coordinate with them in terms of point of contact, and I have maintained the contact information for the citizens that reached out to me, so I can relay that directly to them.
Okay, thank you.
That's Mayor Hodges. That's perfect. That would be good information for them to have. Anyone else?
Are we ready for a motion?
Anybody want to take a stab at this with the amendments?
Mayor or Commissioner Hoppick here. I move that we approve resolution number 21-7935 with the previously mentioned amendments.
Commissioner Ryan, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 21-7935 with amendments as presented by City Manager Mike Scragg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Wait, sorry. Retract that. We're doing the roll call again.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Before we go into executive session, does any commissioner have another item to be addressed under other business? All right. Hearing none, we have a request for an executive session. And Mr. Scragg, you thought it would be about 45 minutes?
That is my best guess. I always am reluctant to guess long and have too much time, but I think 45 minutes is my best guess.
All right, thank you.
Getting better. That's exactly what I thought you were going to say. I started even penciling it in. Mayor, I move the city commission recess into executive session for 45 minutes to discuss with legal counsel the subject of legal considerations relating to defense of the case of William Shepard and Cornerstone Development Group LLC versus City of Salina and City of Salina Planning Commission, based upon the need for consultation with an attorney for the public body, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2. The open meeting will resume via the same Zoom link and the City of Salina YouTube channel at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recess into executive session for 45 minutes, resuming at, I'm sorry, did you say 5:30?
5:30.
5:30. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Franz,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. We will adjourn into our break room and we will resume the meeting in this Zoom location at 5:30.
And Mayor Hodges, Mike Scragg here. You have a couple of housekeeping items for those that are the public that are on the call. You need to do nothing. You can put and we'll return. If we should lose you or you should lose us for some reason, we're using the same link, so you can just log back into the same link. And then for the host that's facilitating this breakout session, obviously it will be all the commissioners, myself, Greg Bankson, the city attorney, Jake Peterson, also with Clark Mize and Linville, Lauren Driscoll, and Dean Andrew, if he's on the line, as support staff. So 5 commissioners, 2 attorneys, 2 staff, and a city manager.
I've got that, Mike. Lauren, I may need a hand here. I'm not seeing the button to create the breakout room anymore. I pulled down on all of the menu items and that option is no longer there. So give me just a second and you'll get an invitation to come into that room.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and mute and stand by. Brad, did you transfer hosting responsibility to Lauren? Might it be?
No, she's no longer listed as the host. I did at one point, but then that went off. And so I saw the link to creating the room before this meeting started. I wanted to make sure that I could do that. And those options are no longer available. So I'm going through various tabs to see if I missed something here, but it's
It may not seem like this to the public, but we really did check this before the meeting started. All right, let me check one more thing.
The only thing listed here is the record. Looks like it was swirled to the right of the-
That swirl is just.
As an alternative, I think I could send out a separate meeting invite to all the participants. We could meet, leave that meeting, and then return to this one.
No, that's just going to invite him to this meeting. I was checking to see if I could do the same thing, Mike, but it would have to be to
Right.
establish a new meeting.
Right.
How is that not an option to
But
break out? What are those all about? There. Reclaim host.
oh,
If you close that down.
we may have found it. My screen was showing I was host, but I may not have been. Breakout rooms. There we go.
Got to remember, Brad's an art guy.
I'm not giving anybody static where
I know, that's
technology is
what
concerned.
Yeah, I have to admit, he's usually a step or two ahead of me, so I can't say much.
No, my screen still said I was the host, but I hadn't formally reassigned myself to be the host. So, Mike, to confirm, it's you and Jake and Greg, our 5 commissioners, and I do not see Dean on unless COS iPad.
That's Dean.
Okay, and
And Lauren.
Lauren, is
Yep,
that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. I will, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
And for anyone listening,
go,
we'll still
Back to
up
the
to
Future.
5:30. We'll make that work, and if we need more time, we'll have to come back.
Sounds good.
All right.
back,
They are.
but just keep him on mute.
Dean is the only one.
Yeah, we don't worry about him.
So we have one more minute until we can resume in the open session. In case people are tuning in and wondering why we're all sitting here.
So, yeah, you're not going back in, correct?
Correct.
Brad, if we may, we probably should unmute the mayor and commissioners so that no one will wonder what is being discussed.
So
Yeah,
close
they
that.
are unmuted right now.
Okay, thanks.
This long, uncomfortable silence reminds me of my first date.
And,
So many things I could say right now.
and with that, thankfully, the clock went to 5:30 and we're back. We're back live, resuming our meeting. There was a note that possible action was to follow after the executive session. There is no action that'll be taken at tonight's meeting. And with that, I guess I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Hoppick here, I move we adjourn.
Second, Commissioner
We have a
Ryan.
motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. And I can do the roll call on this because it's the last one and I don't want to make Debbie do it. Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner France,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
and myself. Aye. Motion passes 5-0, and we will see you on the 8th of February next week. Thank you.
Bye all.